Here's what happened, and I need to get this out before it kills me from the inside. I'm Marcus Chin, 47, been working private security for 15 years. Used to be Army, then corporate bodyguard, the kind who stands in corners wearing expensive suits, watching rich people pretend their money makes them untouchable. 3 months ago, I took a job with Viktor Kozlov. Russian businessman, owns half the commercial real estate in the city. Clean reputation, charitable donations, the whole fucking act. He needed protection during some sensitive business negotiations. Good money, better than I'd seen in years. My daughter Sarah just started college, and you know how that goes. Every month felt like drowning in bills. First week was routine. Drive him to meetings, stand outside conference rooms, check his schedule. Normal rich guy paranoia. Nothing I hadn't done 100 times before. Victor seemed decent enough, asked about my family, remembered my daughter's name, even offered to write a recommendation letter for her internship applications. But there was something in his eyes when he smiled. Something that made my skin crawl, even though I couldn't explain why. Maybe it was the way he looked at the young waitresses, or how his voice changed when he talked to women on the phone. Little things that should have meant nothing. Here's the part that keeps me awake. I saw the signs from day one. The fear in that girl Elena's eyes when she left his office. The way she wouldn't look at me, like I was part of whatever was happening to her. But I needed the money. I needed this job to work out. I should have trusted my instincts. Should have walked away when everything in my gut screamed that something was wrong. Instead, I stayed quiet, did my job, and collected my paycheck. Now I know what happens when good men choose to look the other way. And I'm terrified of what that makes me. Here's what happened, and I need to get this out before it kills me from the inside. I'm Marcus Chin, 47, been working private security for 15 years. Used to be Army, then corporate bodyguard, the kind who stands in corners wearing expensive suits, watching rich people pretend their money makes them untouchable. 3 months ago, I took a job with Viktor Kozlov. Russian businessman, owns half the commercial real estate in the city. Clean reputation, charitable donations, the whole fucking act. He needed protection during some sensitive business negotiations. Good money, better than I'd seen in years. My daughter Sarah just started college, and you know how that goes. Every month felt like drowning in bills. First week was routine. Drive him to meetings, stand outside conference rooms, check his schedule. Normal rich guy paranoia. Nothing I hadn't done 100 times before. Victor seemed decent enough, asked about my family, remembered my daughter's name, even offered to write a recommendation letter for her internship applications. But there was something in his eyes when he smiled. Something that made my skin crawl, even though I couldn't explain why. Maybe it was the way he looked at the young waitresses, or how his voice changed when he talked to women on the phone. Little things that should have meant nothing. Here's the part that keeps me awake. I saw the signs from day one. The fear in that girl Elena's eyes when she left his office. The way she wouldn't look at me, like I was part of whatever was happening to her. But I needed the money. I needed this job to work out. I should have trusted my instincts. Should have walked away when everything in my gut screamed that something was wrong. Instead, I stayed quiet, did my job, and collected my paycheck. Now I know what happens when good men choose to look the other way. And I'm terrified of what that makes me. The first crack in my comfortable little world happened on a Tuesday. I remember because Sarah called that morning, excited about some economics presentation she'd aced. Her voice was so bright, so fucking proud of herself. I was still smiling when I walked into Victor's building. That's when I saw Elena again. Same girl from week 1, but Jesus Christ, she looked different. Thinner, hollow-eyed, moving like every step hurt. She was coming out of the elevator with this older guy in an expensive suit, not Victor, someone I'd never seen before. The way he gripped her arm made my stomach turn. She looked right at me. Just for a second, but it was enough. Those eyes were screaming for help, and I pretended not to see it. Nodded politely like she was just another business associate, like her terror was none of my fucking business. The older guy noticed me watching. "Security?" he asked Victor when they reached us. "My personal protection," Victor said, clapping me on the shoulder. "Marcus is very professional. Very discreet." That word, discreet. The way he said it, like a promise and a threat rolled into one. Like he was telling this stranger that I could be trusted to keep my mouth shut no matter what I witnessed. And the worst part? He was right. I spent the rest of that day trying to convince myself I'd misread the situation. Maybe Elena was sick, maybe she was his daughter or niece, maybe the grip on her arm was protective, not possessive. Maybe I was seeing things that weren't there because I'd been reading too many news stories about human trafficking. But that night, I couldn't sleep. Kept seeing Elena's face, the way she looked at me like I was her last chance. I started researching Victor online, digging deeper than I had before. Found all the same charitable donations and business success stories, but also some gaps. Companies that existed on paper but had no real presence. Addresses that led to empty offices. I found myself checking missing persons reports, scrolling through faces of young women who'd disappeared. None of them were Elena, but they could have been. Same age, same desperation in the photos their families had submitted. By 3 a.m., I was sitting in my kitchen with a bottle of bourbon, trying to figure out how I'd gotten here. When had I become the kind of man who takes money to look the other way? When had I stopped being someone who protects people and started being someone who enables their destruction? The answer was simple and fucking terrifying. The moment I decided Sarah's college tuition was more important than some stranger's life. The next morning, I almost convinced myself I'd imagined the whole thing. That's how the mind works when you need a paycheck more than you need a conscience. Victor was his usual charming self, asking about my coffee, mentioning some charity gala he was hosting. Normal rich guy bullshit that almost made me feel crazy for suspecting anything. "You seem tired, my friend," he said during the drive to his first meeting. "Everything okay at home?" The concern in his voice sounded so genuine. This was the man who remembered my daughter's major, who asked about my ex-wife's new job, who treated me like family. Maybe I really had misread Elena's situation. Maybe she was just sick, or scared of something else entirely. I started making excuses. The girl could have been anyone, a business partner having a bad day, a relative with personal problems, hell, maybe she was an actress practicing for some role. The grip on her arm? Protective, not controlling. The look in her eyes? I probably imagined half of it. When I mentioned seeing that young woman from before, to Victor, he didn't even blink. "Elena? Yes, she's having some visa troubles. Very stressful for someone so young. We're helping her navigate the legal system." See? Perfectly reasonable explanation. Immigration law is complicated, scary for someone who doesn't speak perfect English. Of course she looked terrified. Of course she seemed fragile. I felt like an asshole for thinking the worst. That afternoon, I ran into Detective Rivera at a coffee shop near the office. We'd met years ago on another case, back when I still thought cops and security worked on the same side. She was friendly enough, but something in her manner felt off. "How's the new job, Marcus?" she asked, casual as hell. "Working for Viktor Kozlov, right?" The way she said his name made my skin crawl, but I kept my face neutral. "It's fine. Standard corporate protection work. Interesting guy," she said, stirring her coffee. "We've been getting some reports about young women in his building. Nothing concrete, but you know how it is. People talk." My mouth went dry, but I shrugged. "He runs a lot of businesses. Lots of employees, lots of visitors. What kind of reports?" Rivera studied my face for a long moment. "The kind where families call looking for missing daughters. The kind where girls go in but don't seem to come out." I should have told her everything right then. Should have described Elena, the fear in her eyes, the suspicious meetings, all of it. Instead, I heard myself saying, "Haven't noticed anything unusual." The disappointment in Rivera's eyes was like a punch to the gut. She knew I was lying. Knew I was choosing my paycheck over justice. And the worst part? I was okay with that choice, as long as it meant Sarah could finish school without drowning in debt. "Well," Rivera said, standing up, "if you ever do notice anything, you know where to find me." I watched her walk away, knowing I'd just failed another test I didn't even realize I was taking. The evidence started piling up like a fucking avalanche, and I was standing right in its path, too stupid or too scared to move. Week 6, Victor had me drive him to 3 warehouse locations. Industrial districts where nobody asked questions. Each stop, same routine, I'd wait in the car while he disappeared inside. But this time, I got curious. Parked where I could see the loading dock, some concrete building with no signs. What I saw made my blood freeze. Girls. Maybe 8 of them, all young, terrified. Being moved from a van into the building like cargo. Some could barely walk. Others were crying. One had fresh bruises still swelling on her face. There was Victor, directing everything like a shipment manager. I sat there 20 minutes, watching, and didn't do shit. Didn't call police, didn't intervene. Just sat in my expensive suit with military training, protecting the monster who signed my checks. When Victor returned, he was whistling. "Good location," he said. "Very private. Very secure." Testing me, seeing if I'd ask questions. I didn't. Just drove to the next location, hands shaking. Location 3 was worse. Screaming from inside, high-pitched, desperate. Victor noticed my reaction. Construction work. Power tools can be loud. I knew it wasn't construction. He knew I knew. But we played our roles perfectly. That night, I researched trafficking statistics. Most victims are 18 to 25. Usually trafficked by someone they trusted. Every fact felt like a gut punch, because I knew where Victor fit. And where I fit, not victim, but enabler. Sarah called while I was reading. Excited about some economics club, talking about her future in international business. "I want to help people, Dad. Make the world better through ethical business practices." I almost laughed. Almost told her how business really works, how easy it is to become complicit when the price is right. Instead, I said I was proud and hung up to puke. The worst part wasn't guilt. It was relief when my paycheck arrived, 20% bigger. Even knowing what I knew, that money still felt good. It still meant Sarah's dreams were safe. The turning point came on a Thursday morning when my phone rang at 6 a.m. Sarah's number, but not Sarah's voice. "Mr. Chin? This is Detective Rivera, Portland Police. Your daughter Sarah has been reported missing." The world stopped. Everything, the coffee cup in my hand, my breathing, my fucking heart, just stopped. "Missing? What do you mean missing?" "She's at college, she's..." "When did you last speak to her, sir?" 3 days ago. She'd called about some study group, sounded tired but normal. College tired, not whatever this was. I drove to Portland in 4 hours, breaking every speed limit. Rivera met me at the campus police station, middle-aged Latina woman with kind eyes and a no-bullshit attitude. She didn't show up for classes Monday. Roommate thought she was sick, but her bed wasn't slept in. We found her car in a downtown parking garage. Purse still inside, phone dead. She showed me security footage from the garage. Grainy, but clear enough. Sarah walking toward her car. Then a van pulling up. 2 men getting out. I knew that van. Windowless white cargo van, just like the ones I'd seen at Victor's warehouse. "Do you recognize anything, Mr. Chen? Anyone who might want to hurt your daughter?" I sat there staring at the screen, and for the first time in 2 months, I told the truth. "Yes." Rivera's eyebrows went up. "Who?" "My employer. Victor Kozlov. He's involved in human trafficking." The words felt like vomit in my mouth, but once they started, I couldn't stop them. "I've been working as his bodyguard. I've seen things, horrible things, and I didn't report them. I stayed quiet because he was paying for Sarah's college." Rivera leaned forward. "What kind of things?" So I told her. Everything. The warehouse visits, the scared girls, the screaming, the money. All of it poured out while she took notes, and recorded everything on her phone. "Why are you telling me this now, Mr. Chen?" The question hit like a slap. Why now? Why not 6 weeks ago when I first saw Elena? Why not after the warehouse? Why did it take my own daughter disappearing to grow a fucking spine? "Because," I said, and my voice cracked like a teenager's. "Because I finally understand what I've been protecting. And I can't live with it anymore." Rivera nodded. "We're going to need your full cooperation. We're a wire, keep working, gather evidence. Help us build a case." "What about Sarah?" "We'll find her." "But Mr. Chen, Victor can't know you've talked to us. One wrong move and..." She didn't finish the sentence. Didn't need to. I drove back to Victor's that afternoon like a man walking to his execution. But for the first time in months, I knew exactly who the real monster was. And it wasn't just Victor. It was me too. Walking into Victor's office wearing a wire felt like swallowing razor blades. Every breath, every heartbeat seemed loud enough to give me away. The recording device was smaller than a matchbook, taped under my shirt, but it felt like wearing a neon sign. "Marcus! You look terrible," Victor said, looking up from his desk. "Everything okay?" For a split second, I thought about telling him. Just blurting out that I knew he had Sarah, that the police were involved, that his whole fucking empire was about to come down. But Rivera's words echoed, one wrong move. Family stuff. I managed. My ex-wife's been calling. Victor's expression shifted to something that might have been sympathy on anyone else's face. On him, it looked like a shark smelling blood. Ah, women troubles. They never truly leave us alone, do they? He gestured to the chair across from his desk. Sit. We need to discuss some schedule changes. The wire captured every word as Victor outlined his plans for the next week. 3 new consultations, 2 warehouse visits, and something he called a special delivery, scheduled for Friday night. This Friday delivery is very important, Marcus. Very sensitive. I'll need you to be especially attentive. The way he emphasized attentive made my skin crawl. He knew. Somehow, he fucking knew. But the conversation continued normally. He asked about my coffee, complained about the weather, even showed me new photos of his daughter in Moscow. The mundane evil of it all, discussing trafficking operations between family pictures and small talk. The wire recorded everything, names, locations, times. Evidence that would put him away forever, if I lived long enough to deliver it. Then my phone buzzed. Text message from an unknown number. Stop looking for what you've lost or lose more. Victor glanced at my phone screen and smiled. Bad news? Spam, I said, but my hands were shaking. Marcus, you seem very nervous today. Perhaps you should take a vacation? Spend time with family? The threat was crystal clear. He knew about Sarah. Knew I was looking for her. Maybe knew about the wire, the police, everything. I'm fine, I said. Just tired. Of course. But you know, tired men make mistakes. And mistakes? He shrugged elegantly. Mistakes can be very costly. When I left his office that afternoon, I knew the game had changed. Victor wasn't just my employer anymore, he was hunting me. And somewhere out there, Sarah was his leverage. Rivera listened to the recording that evening, her face growing darker with each revelation. He knows, she said finally. This Friday delivery, it could be Sarah. Or it could be a trap. Both, she agreed. But it's our only lead. That night, I sat in my empty apartment, cleaning my service weapon for the first time in months. Sarah's high school graduation photo smiled at me from the mantel, all hope and bright dreams. I'd spent 2 months protecting a monster. Now I had 3 days to become one myself, if that's what it took to save my daughter. The hunter had become the hunted. And I was running out of time. Friday came like a death sentence. Rivera positioned unmarked cars around the warehouse, but I knew it wouldn't be enough. Victor was too smart. This wasn't delivery, it was a test. We need evidence. Visual confirmation, Rivera said through my earpiece. But Victor didn't head to any warehouse. We drove to his penthouse instead. My blood turned to ice. Change of plans? Victor said casually. The delivery comes to me tonight. Inside his apartment, everything was too normal. Expensive art, classical music, wine glasses like a dinner party. Victor poured vodka, offered me nothing. Marcus, we've worked 3 months together. You've been loyal. I tried to be professional. Professional, yes. But loyalty requires trust. He studied me over his glass. Do you trust me, Marcus? The question hung like gun smoke. Through floor-to-ceiling windows, city lights spread below. Somewhere, Sarah waited for me to save her. Of course. I lied. Victor smiled, walking to the window. My daughter Katia is Sarah's age. 19, studying economics, full of idealistic dreams. My heart stopped. He knew Sarah's major. Details only someone close could know. Katia called yesterday. She's worried about a friend gone missing. American girl studying abroad in Moscow. Very sad. The message was clear. Sarah wasn't here, she was in Moscow with his daughter. Insurance. Leverage. But tonight isn't about daughters, Marcus. Tonight is about trust. The doorbell rang. Victor nodded toward it. Answer that. I opened the door to Elena, but different, cleaned up, nicely dressed, same terrified eyes. Behind her stood 2 of Victor's men. Elena has something to tell you, Victor said as they brought her inside. Don't you, dear? Elena looked at me with recognition. She knew I was the bodyguard who'd watched her suffer and done nothing. He made me call your daughter, she whispered, tears streaming. Made me tell her about study abroad program in Moscow. I'm sorry. So sorry. The room tilted. Elena was bait. Sarah walked into this trap because a terrified girl, forced to lie, convinced her it was opportunity. Victor clapped slowly. Beautiful performance. Elena's been helpful in recruitment. Haven't you? I understood then. The trafficking was bigger than imagined. Elena wasn't just victim, she was victim and recruiter, trapped in cycles where survival meant destroying others. Now, Marcus, Victor said, pulling out a gun. Let's discuss your real reason for being here. Time slowed. Victor's gun pointed at my chest, Elena sobbing, city lights twinkling like nothing mattered. The wire, Marcus. Remove it slowly. I peeled away the recording device. No point denying now. How long working with police? Since Tuesday, I said. No lies left. When you discovered Sarah missing, Victor smiled coldly. Father's love finally overcoming greed. Elena looked at me with pity and disgust. I deserve both. Call Detective Rivera. Tell her operation cancelled, found nothing. Then we discuss Sarah's return. He handed my phone. Rivera's number on screen. One wrong word, and Katia gets specific instructions about your daughter. I stared at the phone. 3 months evidence, dozens victims, Victor's operation, lost if I called. But Sarah. Dad? Elena whispered. Is that being a good father? Hit like a bullet. Elena stared with pure hatred. You watched me beg for help. Watched girls disappear. Did nothing for your precious daughter's college. Her voice grew stronger. How many died while you protected this monster? Victor laughed. You think saving Sarah absolves you? I understood something terrible. It didn't matter if I saved Sarah. Guilt would eat me alive. Elena was right. I'd chosen my daughter over dozens. But maybe that made this choice simple. Fuck the wire. Fuck the evidence. I dropped the phone. Let's do this old way. Victor's eyes widened as I lunged. Military training kicked in, disarm, control, neutralize. His gun flew as we crashed into furniture. Elena grabbed a wine bottle, smashed it across his man's skull. For every girl you destroyed. The penthouse became war zone. When smoke cleared, Victor was bleeding, begging. His men weren't moving. Sarah. I grabbed his throat. We're in Moscow. Address in my safe. Combination. I slammed his head into floor. Once. Twice. The police will be here soon, Elena said. We need that combination. Looking at Victor's bloody face, I realized I wasn't the good guy anymore. Maybe never was. Just another monster who'd found something worth fighting for. The safe combination was Sarah's birthday. Of course it fucking was. Inside, passports, cash, USB drives, and a notebook with addresses in 12 countries. Sarah's location in Moscow was circled in red ink, an apartment building in Tversky district, 4th floor, Unit 47. Rivera arrived with SWAT 20 minutes after the shooting stopped. Found me sitting in Victor's blood, Elena bandaging her cut hands with expensive towels, and 3 men who'd never wake up again. Jesus Christ, Shin. What happened to working with us? Plans changed, I said, handing her the notebook. Everything you need is in there. The arrest came fast after that. Victor lived, unfortunately, broken nose, concussion, but breathing. He lawyered up within hours, started making deals. Elena disappeared into witness protection before I could say goodbye. But Sarah? 3 days of international calls, embassy negotiations, and Russian bureaucracy. Moscow police found the apartment empty. Neighbors said they'd seen American girls there, but they'd been moved 2 weeks ago. No forwarding address. Victor's lawyer called me personally. Smug bastard. My client wants you to know he's disappointed. Such violence was unnecessary. Sarah could have been home by now. Where is she? Mr. Kozlov is no longer in a position to provide that information. The network is decentralized. Other people make those decisions now. Dead end. Sarah was gone deeper into a system I'd helped protect for 3 months. Rivera tried to be encouraging. We've rolled up 6 warehouses, arrested 43 people, rescued dozens of victims. You made a difference. But not for Sarah. Not for my daughter. The media called it a major trafficking bust. Victor got 15 years. Elena's testimony put away 5 more operators. I was offered a commendation for my undercover work. I turned it down. Quit the security business entirely. Sold my apartment, moved to a shitty studio across town. Started volunteering at a shelter for trafficking survivors, though I never told them about my history with Victor. Some nights, I get calls from blocked numbers. Breathing on the other end, then hang-ups. Could be Sarah trying to reach me. Could be Victor's people reminding me they're still out there. Could be my guilty conscience making phantom sounds. The other night, a girl at the shelter looked at me and said, "You understand what it's like, don't you? Being trapped?" I nodded because I did understand. The difference was, I'd put myself in the trap. 6 months later, I still check missing persons reports every morning. Still answer my phone hoping to hear Sarah's voice. Still wake up at 3 a.m. wondering if she's alive. The money in my bank account, Victor's blood money, it's still there. Can't bring myself to spend it, can't figure out how to give it away without raising questions. So it sits. A number on a screen. Reminder of the price I put on my daughter's life, and how it wasn't enough to save her. It's been a year now since Victor's penthouse. I'm writing this because I need someone to know the truth before it's too late. The calls from blocked numbers stopped 3 months ago. That should have been good news. Yesterday, I saw Elena at a coffee shop downtown. Same dead eyes, different face, plastic surgery, but I knew her walk. She pretended not to see me, but her hands shook when she paid for her drink. When she left, there was a note under my cup. "They know where you volunteer. Stop helping or they'll make you watch." The trafficking network didn't die with Victor's arrest. It just grew new heads. And I'm still a loose end that needs cutting. Last week, a new girl arrived at the shelter. 19 years old, economics major, spoke about wanting to change the world through ethical business. My heart stopped when I heard her voice, same cadence as Sarah's, same optimistic tone. But it wasn't Sarah. Just another girl who reminded me of everything I'd lost. When I asked her name, she said, "Katya. I'm from Moscow originally, but I've been studying abroad." Victor's daughter. In my shelter. Looking at me like she knew exactly who I was. She's been there 5 days now. Follows the same routines as other survivors, tells the same stories about escaping traffickers. But I catch her watching me when she thinks I'm not looking. And twice, I've seen her on the phone speaking Russian in quiet corners. Part of me wants to confront her, but what would be the point? She's here for a reason, and that reason isn't getting help. It's finishing what her father started. I could run. Pack a bag, drain my bank account, disappear into some small town where nobody knows my name. But Sarah's still out there somewhere. If there's even a 1% chance she's still alive, still waiting for me to find her, I can't leave. So I stay at the shelter. Keep helping other people's daughters while mine remains lost. Keep pretending I don't see the surveillance car that parks across the street every Tuesday. Keep ignoring the fact that my phone battery drains faster than it should, which means someone's listening. The truth is, I'm not a hero. Never was. I'm just a father who made the worst choices at every turn, who protected a monster for money, who destroyed lives through willful blindness. I don't deserve rescue or redemption. But maybe that's exactly why I need to keep trying. Not because I can save Sarah, that chance died a year ago in Victor's penthouse. But because every girl I help at the shelter is someone else's daughter. Someone else's Sarah. The other volunteers think I'm dedicated. They don't understand that I'm really just serving penance, paying a debt I'll never finish repaying. Each survivor who finds safety is one small step toward balancing the scales of all the girls I failed to save. Tonight, Katya offered to walk me to my car. Such a thoughtful gesture from a trauma survivor. I said yes. Whatever happens next, at least someone will know the truth. I spent 3 months watching evil happen and did nothing. Sarah paid the price for my cowardice. Now I'm paying mine. I still check the backseat.